Morning, guys.
Hello.
Hi, Mark.
Morning, Bill. Long time no see.
Yeah, hi, Bill. How are you?
I'm well.
Just bringing people in as they enter. The participant pool. We'll get started in just a few minutes. Morning, Fred.
Hi, good morning.
Hi, Bill. Hi, Fred.
Hi. How are you, Chris?
Good. While I've got you two, either Bill and or Fred, you received an email from Amy or Carmen here at the office for your annual committee report. Could you make sure you file that hopefully by the end of the week?
Okay.
Will do.
Thanks. If you need any further info, follow up with Amy. I can't remember if I drafted it last year for you or not. If you think I did, maybe I'll look my files and see what I got.
So it looks like we have 4 more participants. Are you guys able to see the participant pool as panelists?
Yes.
Okay. If there's anyone that you recognize, I'm happy to bring them in. Generally, I use the webinar format for this virtual coffee. And then if I recognize folks, I invite them to become panelists and join in on the conversation, because I like it to be a really casual, again, coffee conversation. So we may not see everyone join us, but there are others participating. I've sent them all invites.
Yeah, Josh, Krisha, and Philip are all there.
Yeah, I've sent an invite to everyone
Okay.
to join as
Okay.
as a panelist if they'd like to. Some people choose not to. They just like to participate from. Panelist pool. Just going to give it another couple minutes before we get started.
I'll have more virtual coffee.
Yes. Please do. Softball questions only today, I promise. I want you to come back at some point, so. If there's anyone in the participant pool that would like to be promoted that I missed, just raise your hand. I'm happy to bring you in.
Hi, Richard.
Good morning, everybody. Mark, I really like that expression that Zoom used, being promoted. I haven't been promoted in probably about 30 or 40 years to anything, so this is appreciated.
Congratulations.
Thanks.
Anytime, Richard. How's the weather down there?
Oh, I had a bitch and moan this morning at the airport, an unheard of 57 degrees.
Must be rough.
It is. Yeah, but at least I have blue skies and it might get to 75 today, so I'll suffer through.
We're losing you, Richard.
Yeah, it looks like I'm going to turn off my video because my connection is a little flaky.
Yeah, that's
Anyhow, it
better.
looks like you guys are going to make it all the way up to 32 degrees today, so I'm glad to see that.
Yeah,
Keep up that talk about the weather, Richard. We'll demote you.
Well, this has been a weird, very weird super freezing. I've had freeze ups every couple of days in one or the other building. And it seems the real culprit is the wind, not the cold.
Okay, let's go ahead and get started. It's a few minutes after 10. I'm going to keep an eye on the participant pool. So if I seem a little distracted at times. That's why, because I'm trying to make sure that everyone that joins on has an opportunity to come in and join us in this conversation. But let's go ahead and get started. This is my, I'm sorry, somebody say something?
Well, I was going to say I would start with a little brief history of how the trust came into being.
Yeah, that sounds great. Actually, I'll go ahead and introduce the two of you. For anyone on the line here that, hold on, there's a few more people coming in that may not know you. My guests this morning are Fred Clark and Bill Cook, the current president and past president of the Great Barrington Affordable Housing Trust. So thank you both for joining us this morning for this conversation. And housing is clearly a hot topic here and just about everywhere at the moment. And a question came up at the last session about housing, and I realized the question was more focused on workforce housing, but I thought this would be a good start to a conversation about housing in general, and the efforts that Great Barrington as a community, as a town is making to improve that situation here in town. So Bill and Fred, could you dive right into a little background? And I have some questions for you. If you could lead in, that would be great.
Sure. So way back in 2007, town meeting in Great Barrington voted to accept a Massachusetts general law that permitted the town to establish an affordable housing trust fund. And then nothing happened. That was it. 2015, I got elected to the select board, and I thought housing was our most sort of critical issue to be dealt with. So I looked into what the town could do. And that's when I discovered that really nothing had been done to establish an affordable housing trust fund. So I thought, what the heck, we should do that. So we got it onto a warrant, and I believe it was 2017 that the town actually created the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. And so it was another year of organizing. We had a trust declared. And so 2018, we really started working. We had 7 members on the board at that point. And that's really about it. Since then, we've helped 5 people with down payment assistance, 5 households, a total of $99,000 and change. These are 0 interest deferred payment loans that don't have to be paid back until they sell a house or it's transferred. We've had, through Construct, we've given out close to $100,000 in rental assistance. And last year we purchased just over 7 acres of land in a residential area in Housatonic. And we have an agreement now with Habitat for Humanity to develop 20 units of permanently affordable home ownership housing. And we also have an agreement with Habitat to convert a sort of foreclosed house over on Grove Street in Great Barrington to a permanently affordable home ownership house. And that, in a nutshell, is where we're at as of the moment.
Any idea what your timeline is on the 40 Grove property?
They should be starting work on it this spring. So there
Great.
could be someone in the house this time next year, I think.
That's great.
There's a project sign going up shortly, and the sign's going to have one of those Q things on it that you can scan and you get all the information. Habitat's starting to, they have a person assigned to this area that's specifically talking about community involvement, getting people. They have a really good process for working with prospective homeowners, making it fair, making it understandable, taking them through the financial parts and all. We're actually really, really thrilled that Habitat has come to Great Barrington. This is their first venture south of Pittsfield, both on the Long Pond Road property and now on the Grove Street property. For many, many years, some of us have been trying to get Habitat to come down, but they haven't been interested. And I've just talked to Carolyn Viali, who runs it, and they're talking about creating the whole Southern Berkshire unit, I guess you call it, you know, for Lee and Sheffield and Great Barrington and the rest of the towns down here. So we're actually really thrilled that they're coming in as an affordable player, because they have a different model, largely built on home ownership. So that's exciting. As far as Grove Street goes, you know, it's taken some time to get all the legal stuff in place to transfer the deed to Habitat so that they can do what they need to do. But they've gone in and they've been able to do their evaluations and surveys in the house. They've actually ordered kitchen cabinets. They took measurements and ordered kitchen cabinets. I think there's even a porta potty on site now. But the sign will be going up really soon. And then this spring, we'll start to see a lot of activity there. So
That's that's great news. What a perfect location.
Oh, it's going to be wonderful. It's just, you know, I mean, I think it's going to be a great opportunity for some young couple to come in and build in the community, because it's a great neighborhood.
Yeah.
So Mark, I just wanted to say really thank you for having this. I mean, it seems like everywhere you turn these days, people are talking about affordable housing. People are very concerned about it, whether it's on the ARPA survey where some of the results on that were very high, or letters to the edge that have come up, or I see Ed's here, Ed and Pedro's. It's not that simple. Everybody's talking about housing. Rotary's talking about housing, everything that goes on. And what everybody's concluded is there's no simple solutions. We're in a very difficult situation right now. And basically, there's a disconnect between what people can earn in a reasonable job, not an executive job, not a high-powered job, but in a reasonable, you know, husband and wife, two parties working together, bringing in an income, and then what they can afford for housing. And, you know, we're a victim of our own success in that we have a wonderful community, and it's a great place to live. And like has happened in other kinds of vacation places or destination places, that wonderful community has been very attractive and brought in increasing visitors and permanent residents, people who've moved here, who have the ability to you know, ability to pay a little bit more. So, you know, we're in that probably place right now of in between. So I wanted to go through and sort of like, you know, everybody's talking about affordable housing, but I'm not sure everybody has the same terms. I'm not sure everybody understands exactly what we say when we talk about affordable housing. I mean, at a very simplest, affordable housing is housing that people can afford, but it encompasses affordable rental housing, first-time home buyer housing, and other kinds of things there. And workforce housing is generally a term that's used for people that make a little bit too much money, a little bit higher than the threshold or the state and the federal programs count as affordable housing. So most of the programs that Construct runs or CDC or others have federal and state grant money that's tied into income qualifications. And for all of those affordable housings, we use the area median income. In Berkshire, so for Great Barrington, we use the whole Berkshire County area median income. And so low income housing is a percentage of area median income. Moderate is up to 100% area median income. And for right now in Berkshire County for 2021, that was about $64,000 of gross family income for a family of two. The threshold goes up depending upon the number of family members there, but that's the kind of threshold. To put that in some kind of perspective, if you had a young couple and say she might be a nursing assistant or some other similar sort of job, he might be a carpenter, laborer, painter, and making in the $15 to $18 an hour, they're going to be in that right at that $60,000, $65,000 income threshold. So it sounds like good jobs, but it's still tough. And that's if you can work, if both are working full time, both are employed and all. So that's really where we're at right now. Is so for the housing trust, we're limited to 100% of area mean income for most of our projects. So that's the median income.
For all of our projects, really.
For all of our projects, yes. So that's really where we're at right now.
I'll just, Fred, can I just jump in real quick?
Oh, please do. I'm kind of got to a stopping point.
Ananda, do you mind if I just mention something real quick? I see your hand up. I'm sorry. Hi, everybody. I'm Chris Rembold. I'm the planning director and assistant town manager in Great Barrington. And I guess I'm the staff, most of the staff for the Housing Trust Fund. I wanted to point out that, so Fred was talking about where the Housing Trust focuses its efforts on the 80, 100% area median income area. And it's working, as Bill said, both in the rental assistance and the home ownership areas. The advantage of the Housing Trust is that it can do things maybe that our housing partners throughout the rest of the county and South County aren't focusing on because they have other big projects happening. So like the CDC is doing big rental projects. Construct is doing maybe a little bit smaller rental projects. And the Housing Trust can fill the roles that maybe other nonprofits, other organizations aren't focusing on, or for whatever reason, aren't able to focus on at that time. So this is just another way for the housing issue to be addressed. It's also something that the town can fund directly should the voters choose to do so. So, and early on when the trust started, as Bill was mentioning, it took a while for the trust to get started. A lot of the early meetings were conversations with partners like the CDC and Construct to figure out, what are you focusing on? What should we focus on? And so that's what got the trust to the point of doing homeowner, down payment grants, being able to step in to do the COVID emergency rental assistance, acquiring land for affordable housing. And so that's how the trust got to where it is now, and why it's focusing in the way that Fred explained.
Yeah, I just want to say we're very fortunate to have Construct and CDC and our other nonprofit players here. Not every part of the state is as fortunate as we are. But as Chris mentioned, we're not competing with them. They're our partners. They're our professional resource sometimes. We do not want to compete with them. That's the last thing we want to do. And as Chris mentioned, we want to fill in the gaps that they're not able to. To put it in perspective, most of the projects that CDC or Construct does have 4 or 5, sometimes even more funding sources. each one of those funding sources has their own qualifications and requirements and concomitantly reporting requirements. So every year you have to come back and say, yes, we still meet those requirements. That basically takes staff time to do that kind of thing. They can't afford to come in and do 1 to 4 family housing because, well, one, the grants are there for large scale projects. They're not there for the 1 to 4 family housing. And 2, the amount of overhead it would take, the amount of effort and personnel, just for the payback of helping a few people doesn't add up. So they've chosen to, and 3, all of those grants that I'm familiar with, or most of those grants that I'm familiar with, are for rental assistance, rental properties. So the gap in the marketplace is home ownership, is trying to get people to come in with what we used to call starter homes or first time home buyer houses, to allow people to buy a house, but also, you know, the small rental properties too. Anyway.
Fred, can I add a thought too?
Sure. Well, you could have.
Thank you, frozen.
Amanda's been waiting to speak for a little while.
Yeah, Ananda, go ahead. You've been waiting very patiently.
Thank you. Occasionally I'm patient. I just wanted to flag or kind of ask about, you know, you were talking about the income benchmarks we are using, and you're using countywide benchmarks. 2016 or so, Railroad Street sat down with countywide data on cost of living broken down, like food, housing, childcare, et cetera, for different family sizes, and then did some light research to ask what's the adjustment, because we know, I mean, we all know that cost of living in Great Barrington is different than cost of living in North Adams. And to try to suss that out just for us as we try to think about how to have salaries that would come close to meeting the cost of living. We're in the process of doing that again. My numbers, which are conservative, like I know that where I'm at right now on housing is under what I'm seeing posted in the shopper's guide, suggests that the numbers you all are working with are really, really under anything close to the cost of living. And by cost of living, I'm like, I'm talking about people getting groceries, but not going out to dinner. So I just want to put that on the table. I don't, you know, like what we're doing in-house is not robust enough to offer you all as a useful way to, you know, to pin something publicly too, but I would really encourage looking at how the town could get at something a little bit more realistic to what is happening in South County. The other thing I wanted to say is that as the executive director of an employer, this is crisis levels. I can't recruit staff.
Yeah.
I have staff living in Poughkeepsie because they can't live here. And I'm not going to be able to retain them. I just hired a really amazing young person who is excited to be living in Great Barrington. The day, like the month their job started with us, and this is exactly what they want to be doing. They share an apartment with 1 or 2 roommates. New landlord raised the rent by $900 a month. I think that it's that house, and those of you who know me know that like my whole family's in construction and housing. Like this is, I'm very much not anti people coming and building. I'm pro people coming and building and having really robust ways that we integrate newcomers into our community and build values together. So when I say like we are at a crisis turning point, it's with all of that perspective, that if we don't come up with something different than what we're doing right now, we really are tipping over the edge of anything sustainable. And I hear rumblings of other nonprofits questioning whether or not they can stay in South County because they can't sustain a staff here. So it's a crisis, and it's a crisis I am like 100% up for working on, by the way, if there's a way I can be useful.
I jump in.
Fred, I'm sorry, I must have got kicked off for a moment. The point I wanted to make, and I think your organization might be more capable of dealing with it than the CDC. One of the extreme needs, aside from the general needs of affordable housing, is housing for employees that work in Great Barrington.
Yeah.
Now, whenever we do our various programs, there's no way to allocate apartments, affordable apartments, for employees that work in Great Barrington. That's just part of the DHCD and federal guidelines, which don't allow us to do that. So I urge you to think about considering championing programs that create affordable housing for employees specifically, certainly, using perhaps the income guidelines, but maybe you're in a position to discriminate, if you will, to those type of people that need it, because our town is going to go down the drain if we can't get and keep employees. I'm sure many have noticed businesses that have been open 7 days, 6 days are down to open 4 and 5 days. And that's because of inability in many cases to get employees, but in other cases, they can get employees, but as Amanda pointed out, can't keep them. In fact, we became aware of Theory Wellness that supported the CDC individually. I think we were told that like 70% of their employees live in Pittsfield.
Yeah.
And that was even before COVID. So that's a real hole in the donut that needs serious addressing, and very soon. And as you well pointed out, Fred, it's not possible for organizations like the CDC to do those kind of small projects that could make a big difference. I mean, if you look at Old Mill in Egremont, Terry bought 2 homes to house his employees. Now, that's a successful business that's been around for a long time. They can afford it, but we have many businesses in Great Barrington that can't afford it.
I add something.
We hear this so often, and it's not just, it's everywhere. It's recruiting, it's people who can't bring people in, who look. We've heard of teachers and even a principal who accepted a job and then were looking for housing and walked away. Basically, we hear that so often.
Even the hospital is having trouble.
Yeah, everybody. And I think there's a story that the Red Lion bought a houses too for its employees at one point.
Hubby's Cabins, I believe, for one. Yeah.
Jim,
Yeah.
you've been patient.
Yeah, so I was gonna sort of, let's get everybody's names straight, tying Amanda's comments to, I don't remember if it was Bill or Fred talking about the gap, and Chris talking about the different roles the groups play. One of the things the CDC is working on, we have at this point a fairly good, I hate to use the word formula, but we have a system that works now for a 40 to 50 unit development that gets funded, as was described earlier in this meeting, and provides affordable housing within the income ranges that we described earlier. And so that's not going to change. We can do that. We will do that. We'll continue to do that. What the next challenge for us is to figure out how to work to solve the problem that we're all describing now. And the particular challenge for us is that these established sources of funding don't exist for that, whether it's because it's home ownership or whether it's because of where the income value is or whether it's because of the size of the project. These things all represent challenges. So we're trying to figure out how to solve these problems. And it's clear that some of that solution's in down payment assistance. And some of that solution may be in the town helping to bring preferred financing to the project. You know, I don't know how viable that is, but it's an idea that's out there. There's interest rates that are available to the town that aren't available to other organizations. And some of that might be in partnering pre-construction with buyers if they're for purchase, or renters for the project, so we can eliminate that aspect of risk from the project. And I think that if we're all working together, if we could figure out a way to all pitch in together, we could pencil out a project that works, and then we could execute that project once we've got it to pencil out. So I don't know if I'm hearing the willingness to form a working group to try and solve this problem.
Let me throw something out there, Jim, in that regard. One of the things that the Affordable Housing Trust Fund can do is purchase property on the real estate market without going through a 30B process if they use only CPA money. So if a house comes up under foreclosure or something like that, we can purchase it if we have enough CPA funding available to us. If there is a working group or a group of business owners who want to provide affordable rental housing for their employees, if we could buy some of the existing multifamily homes in town and convert those into workforce housing, essentially, we could make some headway that way.
Yes, I mean, right. So that isn't exactly what I was envisioning. I mean, that's something we'd love to try and participate in. I was envisioning more of a development approach to it, and maybe, you know, at a smaller scale, but that, let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater. This could be a very good idea. And the CDC, which has recently become more active in its economic stimulus side, working with small businesses and economic development side, excuse me. It may be more appropriate for that side of our mission than our affordable housing side, that we can somehow bring businesses together with you and set up whatever agreements and funding and purchase needs to happen. And maybe we approach it more that way than a development project. And maybe that helps solve it. And if we can do one, we can do many, right? So the trick is figuring out how to do one.
Let me introduce what I consider another piece of the overall puzzle. And it isn't directly the housing, it's transportation. So for any of you folks that might be familiar with the world of Manhattan and Long Island, clearly Manhattan became way too expensive for the average worker. Oh, so then they built Brooklyn. Oh, then that became too expensive. And then Long Island happened. And it was amazing the number of people that, because they wanted a nice place with a yard that they could afford, would.
Oops.
We lost you, Richard.
Yeah.
Robin's been waiting.
Okay, so that's all very interesting. I think.
Richard, you might have to turn your camera off again. Robin, you're muted. But why don't you go ahead? You've been patient.
Okay, thank you.
Please.
Can I add something about the workforce housing that may be a temporary
Part
gap,
of
if not something?
How to deal with this.
You
So
got to turn off your video.
Yeah, Richard, we lost you for a few minutes there. I'm sorry.
Okay,
Robin,
so my
Richard?
point is, there are many pieces to the puzzle. And I think that the transportation piece also needs to be part of the discussion on how to create more affordable housing. And just so that other people understand it, because CDC and me personally have worked on trying to get affordable housing for Egremont. One of the things that makes it much better for doing affordable housing in Great Barrington is town water and sewer. So that is a critical piece of helping creating affordable housing.
thanks, Richard. Robin, go
Can
ahead.
can I just add something about the workforce housing? I know I've been getting up on my soapbox about this, but I want to get up again. While these projects are long-term projects, would it be possible for us to consider some kind of a short-term measure of housing stock that exists without getting into the whole affordable short-term housing debate? There are people such as Jen Clark that rent out rooms in their house. I suspect that there are other people who have, I'll call it excess capacity. A child has moved out to college. They'd be happy for the extra income. This is not Airbnb. This is maybe seasonal for our summer workers. But I want to emphasize something that Richard said as a boots on the ground merchant. I am desperate to extend my hours. I'm desperate to take on another project. I absolutely cannot do that because of my staffing situation. I can't bring in minimum wage, sales associates. And by the way, we don't pay minimum wage. We start above minimum wage and we offer benefits. And increasingly others on this call, and I see some of them in the participant pool, do the same, but they're just not coming. Yes, transportation is part of it, but if there were some kind of link that each of the organizations, and I name CDC, SB, I name Construct, I name Habitat, all of the organizations where people might be turning for housing as a short-term measure, if we could at least help them get into some of the excess capacity in shared housing. And some of them, especially the younger people, enjoy that experience. I know Ed had considered it at some point, but they want to be in a shared housing situation. There's all sorts of economic efficiencies. There's a lower carbon footprint to doing so, but there is currently, to my knowledge at least, no centralized way, aside from going onto the Great Barrington Community Forum or one of the online forums, which are spotty. There's no way to link people who want these housing situations with people who have the excess capacity in existing buildings.
True. Thanks, Robin. Nan, go ahead.
Yeah, hi, good morning. First is a point of order. You have 7 attendees who cannot raise their hand or participate. I don't know if you want to turn them into panelists, Mark, but that would be nice. And the other thing is,
Nan, before you move on, I just want to clarify that I have offered panelist promotions to everyone in the pool, and they can raise their hand if they'd like to chime in.
great, thank you so much. I didn't see that to the attendee menu. But so thanks for clarifying that, Mark. I appreciate it.
Mhm.
And to speak to Robin's point, is there a way to have a tax benefit for those people that are housing employed workers that have open up their house, a room or something that might be an incentive for people to actually do that? Be nice to consider it.
That is something that has been brought up before. We haven't explored that at this point.
Thanks thanks very much.
Thanks, Nan. Ananda?
I just wanted to echo the urgency that Robin raised. I think that the things that are about adding housing stock options are vital and not going to be soon enough for what's happening right now. And I think it's time to start thinking beyond down payment loan programs to really thinking about how could we shift family homes, a certain number of family homes into a market price that is more viable for a family. And I wonder about getting creative and doing something like putting together a $500,000 fund per year for a set number of years while we're transitioning to adding more housing, where what basically it would allow changing if we could invest up to 100,000 on a house that's jumped from 250 to 350, and the 250 is within the range of what somebody who's working here can afford, and in a more normal, balanced economy would be easily within reach, that we could actually shift what their mortgage cost is with something that's an investment. And then if they sell it, like set up something where if they sell it, that 100,000 kicks back, but not always be locked into how can we just do the minimum, but like how could we really shift something? Because if we did something like that for 5 years, that's a good chunk of families
Yeah,
that stay in a house here
and I think that's something the
without
housing
having
trust
to, yeah, with and deals with the reality of the market. It doesn't kind of put us in this position of being like, how can we change the or talking to people about, well, it's bad that your house is worth so much. Yeah,
also
so
offers
I
the
know that that's like
opportunity-
an outside the box kind of thing, but I also see one of the strengths of South County is doing small outside the box things that work, because we're a small community and small numbers have big impact.
Yeah, I really like some of the aspects of what you've outlined. And I think one of the things I want to emphasize is, in order to make a dent, we would have to commit to it over several years. And I think we can do that and over time build up a housing stock that is more affordable. And we have the mechanisms to deal with the successor affordability, when people allow people to build up a little bit of wealth through equity, through paying off their mortgage, resell it as their needs change. You look at like Forest Row, for instance, has a plan to do that. Habitat has their own system for keeping projects perpetually affordable. At the core of what you're talking about is buying a house for $350 and selling it for $250. And we can do that, and we need to do that in some ways, because that is the disconnect in the market right now in terms of price and affordability. There's a gap, and somehow or other we need to meet that gap, whether we do it through low interest mortgage or first time home buyer programs, grant programs, things like that. The flaw in your project, your program though, is where do we get $500,000 every year for 5 years? You know, I mean,
So
other than that, it's a great program. No,
so
kidding.
there's an opportunity. And what
I
Amanda just
never
described.
worry about those things. That we figured, like, if that was something we decided to do, we'd get it, we'd find it.
But so there's an opportunity in what you just described, Amanda, because right as you think about this, and Fred just said buy a house for $350 and sell it for $250. That's not really a formula for success, right? In any conventional sense. And as we're, these houses appreciate, and if we're going to try and figure out a way to control that, you're essentially asking some property owner to not take the profit out of what is probably their biggest investment, and they're counting on, that profit in order to retire or whatever it is. But if we could create a fund, which Amanda says she can, that has money to contribute to the purchase, instead of deeding the house into a forever affordable situation, when you become an interested owner of the house, and that $100,000 that you've contributed, when the house sells and the house is appreciated, you're now going to get reimbursed 110 or 115, and then that money can get rolled back into the next house. So that allows the fund inherently to keep up with the market rather than force the house to come off the market. So I think there's potentially some legs there. Again, the CDC would be happy to try and play some role in catalyzing that.
Yeah, I was being facetious when I talked about losing the $100,000 per house. I mean,
No, but I mean, look,
I
that's
will
what we
tell you
want to
that
do. And how do we do that? So that unless we ask that question, we aren't going to solve the problem.
I will tell you one of the reasons I was so thrilled to have Habitat coming and working on our project on North Plain Road was that in Pittsfield in 2019, before the pandemic, they were building stretch building code, energy efficient homeowner houses for $175,000 in Pittsfield, and being able to sell them at a very market rate thing. Obviously, that's before the pandemic. It's before construction and construction materials have gone up. But there's a model. We can do this. And I think,
Yeah.
you know, either Amanda's program or this habitat, we have this model. I will tell you that if land obviously is one of the issues, it's the single most uncontrollable, we'll call it, issue that we face. And we would love to replicate, I would love to replicate what we're doing on North Plain Road, where we're creating 20 units of home ownership housing just outside the village. If we could find another parcel of land, or if we could find an owner who's altruistic, who would either donate it or sell it at maybe a reduced rate, knowing that it would go to affordable housing, knowing that it would have a good use. And so we certainly would work on that project, and it could be the catalyst to start this fund.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, everyone. It's about 10:45, and I do try to keep these meetings to about an hour. Bill and Fred, I just wanted to say thank you so much for joining us this morning. And this is a really important conversation. As I said earlier, housing is near and dear to everyone in this community in different ways, and this housing conversation clearly needs to continue. And I'd love to have you guys back at some point soon. And I just wanted to mention that on Monday night, the select board met in a public session to discuss our priorities for the upcoming 6 months, something we do twice a year in January and June, and affordable housing is right at the top of that list. This is something that we're focused on and invested in. And so thank you for everything that you're doing for the Affordable Housing Trust. I just
Mark,
wanted
can I ask you something regarding that? Something that's been in the back of my mind that I don't know if it's technically feasible, especially since we're talking about creating a fund. Can the town of Great Barrington float a bond to do some of this?
If it gets to town meeting.
right. And I don't see our role as a town being a developer. Is that what you're?
No, financier. Not a developer, a financier.
I'll jump in. This is Chris. The town can't bond for anything it doesn't own, but
Okay,
the town can fund projects in other ways.
okay.
And to continue the conversation, if folks have ideas or they want to get together again, feel free to email me and Fred and Bill, and we can chat offline. There's a lot of great ideas that came up here that we could try to run down a little bit.
I throw one more at you, Chris, real quick.
Up tomorrow.
Go ahead, Jim.
Just super quick, one sentence. Robin from the CDC found a set of articles about how to leverage ARPA money in the current environment. And it was like the top 10 suggestions. And one of the suggestions was to use ARPA money to buy up distressed commercial property to create a sort of preservation trust to create affordable commercial leases. I don't see that as Great Barrington's problem, but I would wonder if there isn't a way to use ARPA money to create a similar trust to buy up distressed residential property and try and do that. So I'll try and do some background work on that.
Thanks, Jim. And we're going to be continuing our ARPA conversation very soon. We just need to focus our time and attention during the month of February on our fiscal 23 budget season, but we'll be circling back to ARPA very shortly. Go ahead, Tim.
I may have missed something. Most of the conversation seems to be about ownership. And it strikes me that for some probably large percentage of workers that would work in retail or restaurants, in the area are going to be probably younger people who will not be interested or able to buy, but would like to rent if there was rentals available. And one of the things that maybe you all know is there any sense of numbers of rentals that would be ideal? We don't need real numbers to do something, but it would be helpful to know if 50 rentals would be good or 500. The other thing that I've always found puzzling, young people and old people like me sometimes live alone, and everybody talks about couples and families. And for people in their 20s, let's say, who are looking to work, studio apartments are good. And I don't see any studio apartments anywhere. And am I missing something?
Tim, as far as I know, relative to CDC type projects, they do not want to see studio apartments as part of the mix. In fact, there's a formula, I don't know exactly what it is, distribution between 1, 2, and 3 bedroom that the CDC likes to see as part of it. But your point is extremely well taken, that we've been emphasizing home ownership for a long time. I don't see that as the significant need now, last couple of years, and frankly, going forward. And I'll take a wild guess at your other question about how many units could make a huge difference. And I'd use the number 100. And I'm not talking about general affordable. I'm talking about workforce, to the employees that work in and around Great Barrington.
Well, that would say to me that if studios are, for some reason, not a viable size, then a large emphasis on 1 bedrooms. I don't want to discriminate against families, but certainly there's a need for the lowest price rentals that can be had, so people who would like to live here and work here can find a place to live and afford to be here.
Yeah. And right now that cost is minimum $1,400 a month.
It should be like 900.
Yeah, it was, the last time it was like 900 was over 10 years ago.
Yeah, by the way, Ananda, regarding that whole world, that's a bit insane. It's the fact that Great Barrington, and I know this is, I was going to say DHCD. It's not DHCD that makes those rules. It's the federal government that only looks at the Pittsfield SMSA as the guide for all of Berkshire County. I don't know if that can be worked through our federal representatives to carve out. I have no understanding of how that works.
Yeah, there's data for Pittsfield and data for the quote surrounding metro area, end quote. So, which I assume is then there for the rest of the county.
Yeah.
And so it is, in my perspective, it is really important that we take that baseline data and then dig in a little bit, which doesn't take a lot, to look at the adjustment for South County and get ourselves some ballpark idea of how different it is. For us, it's about like just a place to start thinking from. I imagine that if we were going to embark upon a project that was pinning access to material resources to some kind of income number, we'd want to get a little bit more specific than ballpark.
Fred, go ahead.
Yeah. I just want to say this has been a really good conversation. And again, on behalf of the Affordable Housing Trust Fund of Great Barrington, we are a town committee. We have a couple of openings for members. We would love it if you join us. Our agenda and Zoom link is posted on the town committee's website. We meet about once a month. Even if you don't want to become a member, but you want to just participate in our discussions, they're very friendly and open. We may not have all of the answers, but we believe that we are doing something right now that's helping and working on the same problem. So we would love it if you'd come and join us. We are looking for new members. If you're interested, contact me or to Chris or to Mark, and we can give you more information.
Thanks, Fred. I have a couple folks in the participant pool with their hands up that haven't had an opportunity yet to speak. So I'd like to call on them and then we'll wrap this meeting up in a few minutes. So Josh, go ahead. Your mic is open.
I'd like to quickly, this is Josh Irwin, quickly just ask the question, as Tim was mentioning, you know, that one bedroom should be $900. I'm starting to look at building and whatnot and realizing $900 is unfeasible unless you're looking to incorporate essentially charity. And so $1,400 to me for workforce housing, if I had a stock of $1,400 a month workforce housing, I would be fine with that. I think there needs to be a certain number of pressure. This is a multi-step thing, pressure from business owners to be able to meet the demands. And that then trickles down to customers, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I don't think that $900 a month is ever possible for a one-bedroom apartment anywhere. And I think we need to start to realize that that is the new normal. And how else can we start to balance these scales to make the numbers work? And it's not just about creating the cheapest affordable living possible. People who move here don't want to live in a massive, you know, apartment complex. They want to live the Berkshire lifestyle, but we need to be able as businesses to pay them the right amount. And so I think we're lumping workforce housing a little bit too much into the low income housing. And there's a difference there that needs to be very clearly identified and figure out what are the other variables that we can change to make sure all those numbers ultimately match up.
Thanks, Josh. Krisha, go ahead. Your mic is open now.
But you're muted.
Your mic is open on my end, I should say. Just unmute yourself and there you go.
I just want to mention, first of all, I would just want to respond quickly to Josh. It's not true that there is no housing available in the lower prices. I live in one that is $850 a month, and people in my complex paying even less. So it's possible. It depends on the landlords, really, and their attitude towards the whole thing. And I would like to say that I applied to be a member of Affordable Housing Committee within the last year, probably 7 months ago. Never heard any answer. And I even inquire again to Amy about it and never heard them.
Thank you, Krisha. I will get to the bottom of that and we will give you a reply before the end of the week. My apologies.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, everyone. It's just about 11 o'clock. This was a great conversation. Again, a really important topic, and I think we need to continue this conversation at some of these future meetings. So thank you, everybody. Again, have a great day.
Thank you.